My daughter was in trouble, and she did not call me. I found out 8 months later. In a phone bill I almost threw away. My daughter is 29 years old. She is mine, has been mine since the moment they put her in my arms, and she looked up at me with the specific suspicion of someone who has just arrived somewhere unfamiliar and is not yet sure about the welcome. She was sure eventually. We talk every week, not scheduled, not formal. She just calls when something happens, or when nothing happens, and she wants to tell me about it anyway. That is who she has always been. My daughter, who calls her mother, until she did not. The man she is with now is named Daniel. She met him 14 months ago, brought him to meet me 3 months after that. He shook my hand and looked me in the eye and said he had heard so much about me. He was charming. He was not obviously wrong. He did not make me uncomfortable in any way I could name. He just made me feel like I was being assessed. I filed that feeling in the place where I keep things I notice and do not examine. I have a drawer like that inside myself, because making things into something, when they are probably nothing, is exactly the kind of parenting I promised myself I would never do. My daughter is independent. I raised her to be. That is the thing I am most proud of. Her opinions are her own. Her life is her own. Her way of moving through the world she built herself without needing me to approve it. So when she started calling less, I told myself it was Daniel. New relationship, new life, normal. When she stopped mentioning her best friend, I told myself they had drifted. It happens. When she stopped talking about her own plans and only talked about his, I told myself she was in love. That is what being in love looks like. I told myself a lot of things. I was very convincing. The junk drawer in my kitchen is where things go when they have nowhere obvious to be. Takeaway menus from places that have closed. The birthday card from my sister 3 years ago that I cannot throw away because of what she wrote inside. The warranty for a kettle that broke in year 2 of a 5-year guarantee that I kept meaning to claim and never did. I was looking for my home insurance renewal. I took everything out, set it on the kitchen table, went through it piece by piece, and found a brown envelope with my daughter's name in the address window. I almost put it with the takeaway menus. My hand was over the pile, but it had her name on it. I opened it because it had her name on it. That was the only reason. No instinct, no premonition, just her name on an envelope, and something in me that could not put her name in the bin. It was the final statement from her time on my phone plan, before she moved in with Daniel and switched to his. 8 months ago. I had received it and filed it without reading it, the way you file things you mean to deal with, and never do. I looked at the call log, the last week of her time on my plan, the week before she moved in with him, her best friend. A number I did not recognize that I would later find was a helpline. A lecturer from university she had not mentioned in years. I read it twice. The way you read something twice when you are hoping the second reading will be different. It was not different. My number was not there. I set the statement on the table. I went to make tea. I stood at the kettle and listened to it boil and made myself think about nothing. The kettle and the steam and the mug and nothing else. I brought the tea back. I sat down. I looked at the list again. My daughter was frightened enough to call a helpline at 3 in the morning, and she did not call me. I sat with that. That night I called her. Not about the statement. I put it face down on the table, and I called her because I needed to hear her voice. Just that. Just her voice. She answered. Warm, normal. How are you, Mum? I listened, and then she paused before answering something I asked. Half a second. The kind of pause you would not notice if you were not her mother. I noticed it. I was not filing it anymore. I said, You sound tired. She said, I am fine, Mum. Just a long week, I said. Get some sleep, she said. Love you. After she hung up, I sat there, my phone in my hand, her nickname on the screen, the one I gave her when she was 7 years old, the one that exists nowhere else in the world, just my phone. Just for her. I looked at it, and I understood something with the statement face down on the table, and the tea going cold. Whatever happened in that week 8 months ago was not finished. It was still happening. Right now. Tonight. While she talked to me in her normal voice and told me she was fine, I was going to find out what was happening to my daughter. I sat at that kitchen table with the phone bill face down and the tea going cold, and I thought about every parent who has ever known something was wrong before their child said a word. If you have ever been that parent, you already know what I did next. Subscribe to Voices of Mia, because that parent deserves to see how this ends. I put the statement in the drawer. I needed 2 days to decide what kind of mother I was going to be next. I have spent 29 years being a particular kind of mother, the kind who respects the distance, who does not call twice when once goes unanswered, who does not ask questions that are really requests, disguised as questions, who raised a daughter to be independent, and then honored that independence, even when it cost her something. That is who I am. Starting to investigate my adult daughter's life means becoming someone else entirely. The kind of mother who cannot trust her daughter's judgment. The kind who sees danger in ordinary things. The kind her daughter would have every right to pull away from. So I left the statement in the drawer. I watered the plant on the windowsill. I made dinners I ate alone. The engagement party invitation sat on my kitchen counter, her handwriting on the envelope. A venue I did not know. A date 6 weeks away. I counted 6 weeks. 6 weeks and my daughter would be 4 hours away in his apartment. 6 weeks was not enough time. 6 weeks was all I had. On the second day she called. An ordinary call, nothing important. She was telling me about something she had seen on her way to work. Something small and funny. The kind of thing she would have texted me before all of this. A quick photo, a voice note, something easy. Now she was calling. Her voice doing the work her hands used to do. I did not know if that was better or worse. I held on to that. And then she laughed at something I said. I have known my daughter's laugh for 29 years. The real one starts in her chest and arrives slightly surprised. Like joy is something that still finds her before she can prepare for it. What I heard was close, but it started somewhere different. It arrived on time, like it had been prepared. The distance between the laugh I knew and the laugh I had just heard. I sat with that, measuring it, understanding what it meant. I said nothing. After she hung up, I went to the drawer. I took the statement out and held it for a moment. Then I sat down at the kitchen table, and I started. I am not a detective. I have no training in anything like this. What I have is a laptop, and 29 years of knowing my daughter. And I had decided to stop filing things. She used to tell me when something bothered her at work. Small things, the kind of complaint that is really just processing out loud. She stopped doing that a few months after he arrived. She used to send me photographs of things that reminded her of me. A color, a flower, a book spine in a shop window. She stopped doing that not long after. She used to disagree with me, not badly, just in the specific way of a woman who has her own opinions and is not afraid to use them. By the time spring came, she stopped disagreeing with anything I said. She just agreed, pleasantly, like someone reading from a script they had been given and found reasonable. I wrote it all down, not in a notebook, on the back of an envelope from the same drawer. I did not want it to look like an investigation, because I was not ready to call it one. When I looked at the list, I saw it. None of these things were isolated. They were a pattern, and a pattern has a source. His social media was public. Photographs of food and places, and the occasional photograph of my daughter looking happy. I looked at those photographs carefully. She did look happy. That is the thing I keep coming back to. She looked happy in the way people look happy when they have been told what happiness looks like, and have worked very hard to achieve it. And then I found an account I did not know existed. A second one. Public. Under a variation of his name. There was a photograph of my daughter. Not posed, not taken with her knowledge. She was at home, in her kitchen, seen through the window, not looking at the camera because she did not know the camera was there. He had taken it from outside, through the glass, and posted it. The caption was affectionate, something about watching the person you love in their natural habitat. something that was designed to sound like tenderness. I looked at that photograph, my daughter in her kitchen, not knowing she was being watched. On a public account she did not know existed. I knew what it felt like. It felt like a door I had not known was open, and I had just seen what was on the other side of it. My daughter in her kitchen, not knowing she was being watched. On a public account she did not know existed. I had one more thing to do before I could understand what any of this meant. I had to call the one person my daughter had reached for at midnight, when she did not reach for me. I called her best friend. She answered on the second ring. I told her I had seen the call log, that I had seen her name on it, that I needed to understand what happened that week. She started talking. 8 months ago, my daughter had called her at midnight, not hysterical, not dramatic. The specific quiet of someone who has been told they are overreacting so many times they have started to perform calm, even when they are not calm. She said she did not know if what she was feeling was real. She said Daniel had helped her see something about herself, a pattern she had not noticed before, the way she created problems in relationships that did not exist, the way she made things harder than they needed to be. He had been patient about it, gentle even. Then he had shown her examples, specific ones. She had called her best friend at midnight to ask if she really was that person. Her best friend had told her no, clear and certain. She told my daughter that what she was describing was not who she was. It sounded like something she had been taught to believe about herself. My daughter had thanked her, said she needed to think about it, then stopped calling. I asked why the friend had not told me. She said, "She asked me not to. She said you would worry. She said she did not want you to think less of him before you had a chance to know him properly." I asked about Daniel, she said. "I saw him once. About a month ago. Without your daughter. He was having lunch with a woman I did not recognize. I almost went over. Then I did not." I said, "Why not?" She said, "Because of the way he was sitting with her. The way he was looking at her. Like she was the most important person in the room. Like she was lucky to have his attention. It looked exactly like the way he sits with your daughter," she said. "I have been hoping I was wrong for 8 months." Daniel had been having lunch with a woman who looked at him the way my daughter looked at him, and my daughter either did not know or had been told that noticing was the problem. I did not sleep that night. By morning, I was back at the laptop. I went back to his social media, the second account. I found 3 photographs. Same restaurant, same table, 3 different years. My daughter had only known him for 14 months. Someone else had been sitting across from him at that table. The most recent photograph was taken 18 months before he met my daughter. I closed the laptop. I sat there. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter and more frightening than anger. The specific feeling of a woman who has been watching her daughter change for 8 months and has just found the first piece of evidence that the change was not accidental, that it was deliberate, that someone had been working at it. I had raised my daughter to be independent. I had spent 29 years making sure she knew her own mind. I had given her that specific freedom as the most important thing I could give her. And someone had looked at that independence and seen something to dismantle. I sat at my kitchen table with the laptop closed. This was not going to resolve itself. Whatever was happening to my daughter was not something she was going to wake up from, not something a difficult conversation would fix. It had been engineered, and I had 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I want you to think about what 6 weeks means when the person you love most is 4 hours away from being completely unreachable. If you have ever counted down to something you were afraid of, tell me in the comments where you are watching from, right now. Tell me what you were counting down to. Subscribe to Voices of Mia, because what I found in those 6 weeks changed the way I understood everything that had come before them. I found her through a photograph. She was standing beside him, her hand on his arm. The way you touch someone you are proud to be next to. I looked at her, not because she looked like my daughter, because my daughter looked like her. The same way of standing, the same slight lean toward him, the same expression that was not quite a smile, but was trying to be. the expression of someone working very hard at something that should not require work. I found her profile, mostly private, a few public photographs. A woman who looked like she was starting over. I recognized that look. I had seen it before, in people who had lost something they did not know how to name. I sent her a message. I said I was sorry for contacting her out of nowhere. I said I was a mother. I said my daughter had been with him for 14 months, and I was scared, and I did not know who else to ask. I sent it. Then I sat, and I waited. She replied 4 hours later. How old is she? 29. I wrote back. A long pause before her next message. How long has she known him? 14 months. Another pause. Longer. Then, he proposed at the 8-month mark. I looked at the engagement party invitation on my kitchen counter. Yes, I said. She said. What happened to me was not dramatic. There was no single moment I can point to and say that was when everything changed. That is what made it so hard to see. He remembered things, not important things, small things. The name of her childhood dog, the street she grew up on, the thing her mother used to say that drove her crazy. He remembered all of it and brought it back at exactly the right moments. She said, "You think that is love. You do not realize for a long time that being seen that completely can also mean being known that completely. And being known that completely by the wrong person is not warmth. It is not safety. It is exposure." After she spent time with a friend, he would ask her things, quietly. Did she feel better after that visit, or more tired? Did her friend actually listen, or mostly talk about herself? Did she leave feeling supported, or somehow smaller? She said, the questions always sounded like concern, but they were measuring something. Every time she came home from seeing someone he did not like, he would measure how she felt about them afterward, and each measurement moved the dial a little further. She said, he never told me to stop seeing anyone. He just made me ask myself whether I should. And I came to the conclusions myself. That is the part that is hardest to explain to people. I made the choices. I just did not understand yet what I was choosing between. She stopped talking for a moment. Then she said, he ended it the same week I realized I had nobody left. She said, one day I was sitting in my apartment. I had made tea. I was going to call someone. I sat there, with the tea going cold, trying to think of a single person I was sure would want to hear from me. And there was nobody. Everyone I had was gone. I had done it myself. With his help, she said. That was the week he ended it. He said he had been concerned for a while, that I had become too dependent on him, that it was not healthy, that he cared about me too much to let that continue. He was very kind about it. After she said that, neither of us spoke for a moment. He had removed everyone from her life, and then he had left, because she had nobody left, I said. How long did it take you to rebuild? She said. I am still rebuilding. I asked her one more thing before she went. About the proposal, she said. He proposed at a restaurant. A particular table, he said, was special to him. He said he brought people there who mattered to him. I believed him. I thought it meant I was different. That whatever had come before me was not what we had. She stopped. Then she said, after it ended, I found out I was not the first. There was a woman before me. Same table, same words probably. I do not know. I did not look for her. I thought about the 3 photographs. Same table, 3 different years. I said, how many do you think there have been? She did not answer for a moment. Then she said, he has been doing this for as long as he has known how. He finds women who have something specific, a strength, an independence, something that makes them sure of themselves. And he takes that thing apart very carefully and very patiently. And when it is gone, he leaves. It was the taking apart. She said, your daughter. What is she like? I said, she is the most herself person I have ever known. She has never needed anyone's permission to be exactly who she is. She was quiet. Then she said, that is exactly who he looks for. I sat there after she hung up, the engagement party invitation on the counter. 6 weeks. The same table in 3 photographs. The woman before my daughter, who was still rebuilding. She had not called me. It was not because she did not trust me. It was because he had spent 8 months teaching her not to. He had used my words, my calls, my love, every ordinary moment between a mother and daughter. He had taken each one and turned it carefully until it looked like something else, until my concern looked like control, until my interest looked like interference, until the person she would naturally reach for in the dark became the person she had been taught to reach away from. She had not called me because he had made sure she would not. And I had 6 weeks, not to build a case, not to win an argument. 6 weeks to remind my daughter who she was before he arrived, and who I had always been to her. I picked up my phone. I looked at her nickname on the screen. Then I called and arranged to view the old house. I asked her to come with me. She said yes before I finished the sentence. I had not expected that. Or maybe I had. Maybe some part of her had been waiting for me to ask. I had one move left. Before I could take it, he called me. Not my daughter, him. And the way he spoke to me told me something I was not ready to hear. He was not threatened. He was not even concerned. He sounded like a man who had been here before and already knew how it ended. He called me the morning before we were going to the house. Not my daughter, him. I looked at his name on my screen. Then I answered. His voice was warm. The specific warmth of someone who has practiced it until it sounds natural. He said, "I just wanted to say how glad I am you two are spending time together. The old house sounds wonderful. I always tell her how important it is to stay connected to where she came from, to the people who shaped her." A man who had spent 8 months removing my daughter from every person who mattered to her, telling me he valued connection. I said, "You are very thoughtful, Daniel." He laughed, the practiced warmth again. He said, "I just love her. You know how it is." After I hung up, I stood at the window. He had not called to wish us well. He had called because he knew what I was doing, and he wanted me to know that he was not afraid of it. I sat with his voice still in the air of my kitchen. He was confident, not angry, not defensive, not concerned, confident, like a man who had done this before and knew exactly how it ended. And the worst part was, he was probably right. I stayed at the window. Then my phone rang again. I looked at the screen, him again. I did not answer. I watched it ring until it stopped. Then I picked up my bag, and I drove to the old house. My daughter was already there when I arrived, standing outside, looking up at the front of it the way you look at something you have not seen in a long time and are trying to remember if it is smaller than you remembered or if you are just larger. She turned when I pulled up. She smiled. Not the smile I had been seeing for months. The careful one. The one that arrived on time. The real one. The one that started in her eyes before it reached her mouth. I got out of the car, and we stood there for a moment. She said, "It looks the same." I said, "Most things do from the outside." We went in. The estate agent left us to look around. The house had been changed by the people who lived in it after us. Different colors on the walls, different furniture. But the bones were the same. We moved through the rooms without saying much. The kitchen, where I taught her to make pasta. She used to sit on the counter and watch me cook. Asked questions about everything. The fearless curiosity of a child who believed every question deserved an answer. The living room, where she learned to read. Knees pulled up in the corner of the sofa. A book held so close to her face, I used to tell her she would ruin her eyes. She never listened. She just read. Each room a different version of her. Each version someone he had never met. Her bedroom had been made into a study. A desk, where her bed used to be. A bookshelf where her drawings used to hang. But beside the doorframe, the height marks were still there. She found them before I did. She stopped. She stood in front of that wall, and I watched her face change. The way faces change when something unlocks. When a person remembers something they did not know they had forgotten. My handwriting. The specific way I wrote the numbers. Age 4. Age 7. Age 12. Age 16. And beside the last mark, in her own handwriting, something she had never shown me, still growing. She reached out and touched the wall with one hand. Then she turned around. She looked at me. Not the version of her that had been showing up for months. Careful, measured, checking herself before she spoke. The real one. The one who had stood in this spot at 16 years old and written "still growing" on a wall because she believed it and wanted to remember that she believed it. Still there, still her. We did not stay much longer after that. We did not need to. We drove home in the kind of quiet that is not empty, the kind that is full of something that has not yet found its words. Halfway home, she said, "I have not been myself lately." I did not look at her. I kept my eyes on the road. I said, "I know," I said, "long enough." She looked out the window. She said, "I told him about today. Before we came." I said, "I know that too." She turned to look at me. She said, "He called you." It was not a question. I said, "This morning." She was quiet. I said, "He said he was glad we were spending time together, that he always encouraged it." She turned back to the window. She said, "He is going to know I told you something today. He always knows. I do not know how, but he always knows." I said, "Then let him know." She looked at me. I said, "You are not protecting him anymore. You do not have to." Her eyes filled. She did not let them spill. She said, "I am scared." I said, "I know. So am I." She said, "What do we do?" I did not have a complete answer. I had one thing I knew for certain. She was still her. I had just seen it with my own eyes. That was enough. I said, "We start with tonight. You tell me what you can, and we go from there." She looked at the road ahead. Then she reached across and took my hand. She held it the way she used to, when she was small, and we were crossing a road, and she was not scared exactly, but she wanted to be sure I was there. I held it back. We drove the rest of the way home, like that. He called that evening. She looked at his name on her phone. She put it face down on my kitchen table, and the next morning she told me everything, including the one thing that finally told me why she had not called me that night 8 months ago. Not shame, not protection. Something I was not prepared for. Tell me in the comments if you have ever been the person someone did not call when they should have, or the person who did not call when you should have. Subscribe to Voices of Mia, because what she told me next is something I have never said out loud until now. She sat at my kitchen table the next morning, with both hands around a mug she was not drinking from. I had made coffee the way she liked it. I was waiting for her to find the beginning of it. She looked at the table. Then she said, "I need to tell you something I have not told anyone." I did not move. She said, "The night I called the helpline, 8 months ago, the week before I moved in with him," she said, "I called because I was going to leave him that night. I had made up my mind. I had packed a bag. It was sitting by the door of my apartment." She stopped. Then she said, "Before I called the helpline, I called you." I stopped breathing for a moment. She had called me. 8 months ago, with her bag packed and the door right there, she had called me, and I had not known. She said, "I was standing there, with my bag by the door, and I picked up my phone, and I looked at your name on the screen, the nickname, the one you gave me when I was 7 years old, the one that only exists in your phone." I did not say anything, she said, and I could not press the button. I said nothing for a moment. Then I said, "Why?" She looked up at me. She said, "Because he had spent 4 months telling me what would happen if I called you. 4 months. We had barely known each other, and he was already teaching me not to call you. He had shown me conversations we had where you were worried about me, where you asked too many questions. He said it came from love, but that it was a particular kind of love that needed me to need you. That every time I called you when something was hard, I was reinforcing something in both of us that was keeping me small," she said. And I believed him. I was standing there with my bag packed, and the door was right there, and I thought, if I call her, she will come, and it will feel like being rescued, and I will never know if I could have done it myself, she said. So I called the helpline instead. The woman on the phone talked to me for an hour. By the end of it, I had unpacked the bag. She said that the way you say something you have never said out loud before, like the saying of it, was its own kind of weight. My daughter had called me, She had looked at my name on the screen. She had not been able to press the button. Not because she did not love me, because he had made my love look like a trap. She kept talking. The way you talk, when you finally have someone to put something down with. She told me about the beginning, the specific quality of his attention, the feeling of being known completely. She used the same word the previous woman had used, without knowing she was using it. Seen, she said. I had never felt that seen before, and I did not understand for a long time that being seen is not the same as being safe. She told me about the questions, the ones that came after she spent time with her friends or with me, the ones that seemed like care, but were measuring something, she said. He never told me anything directly. He just asked questions, until I arrived at the answer he wanted me to arrive at. And because I arrived at it myself, I thought it was mine. I thought I was thinking clearly for the first time. The night she called the helpline, what happened before she picked up the phone? A conversation that lasted 3 hours, where he explained to her, in careful, patient detail, the pattern she had with me, the way my love operated, the way it had shaped her, the way it was still shaping her without her knowing. She said, he had examples. He always had examples. Things I had said to him about you. Things that when he held them up in a certain light, looked like evidence. She said, Mum, some of the things I told him about you, the things I said in private, he used them. Not cruelly, carefully, like each one was a small piece of something he was building. I said, I know. She went very still. I said, he called me once. Before today. He referenced something I had said to you. Something private, she said. When? I said, weeks ago. I did not say anything, because I did not want to push you away. She said, I told him everything. I thought it was intimacy. I thought that was what it felt like to be truly known by someone. She said, I told him things about you that I should not have told anyone. And he used every single one. How it felt when he proposed. Not the way she had imagined it would feel. Not completely. There was something underneath the happiness. A feeling she could not name at the time. She said, I think I knew something was wrong. I think some part of me knew. But I had been taught by then to not trust that part. He had a name for it. He called it my pattern. The part of me that created problems that did not exist. The part I needed to work on, she said. So when I felt something was wrong, I told myself it was the pattern. I told myself I was doing it again. Then she said, I said yes because I did not trust myself anymore. He had not taken her independence. He had taken the thing underneath independence. The part of her that could tell the difference between what she wanted and what she had been told to want. He had taken that. After she finished talking, the kitchen was quiet, not heavy, just settled, like something that had been waiting a long time to be still. Then she said, I ended it last night. I looked at her, she said, after we got home from the house, after I put his name face down on the table. I sat in your kitchen, and I thought about the height marks, about still growing, she said. And I called him. I told him I was not going to marry him, that I needed him to stop contacting me, that I was going to take some time, she said. He was very calm. He said he understood. He said he hoped I would find the healing I was looking for. The same words, the same kindness, the same exit. I said, Are you all right? She said, I do not know yet. I think I will be. She picked up the mug, drank the cold coffee without making a face. Then she said, I want to call her, she said. My best friend. I want to call her today, I said. She will answer. She reached across the table and took my hand. Not the way she had in the car. Not the way she used to when she was small and we were crossing roads. The way she held it now was different, with the full weight of knowing what it costs to reach for someone, and choosing to, anyway. I held it back. She ended it. She sat in my kitchen the morning after, and she told me everything, and when she was finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. Not the way she used to when she was small. The way you reach for someone when you have come back from somewhere far away, and you want to make sure they are still there. I held it back. 6 weeks later, Something happened that I did not expect, and it was not about him at all. 6 weeks later, the engagement party venue was empty. I drove past it one morning without thinking to avoid it. I saw the sign from the road, the name of the place, the window where the table was. I did not stop. I drove past and thought about the 3 women who had sat at that table, believing they were the one who was different, the one who mattered enough to change something in him. I thought about the previous woman who was still rebuilding, about my daughter 6 weeks ago, at my kitchen table, with cold coffee, and her hands finally open. I drove home. My daughter had not spoken to him since the night she called. He had tried. 3 calls in the first week. She did not answer any of them. A message in the second week that she read and did not reply to. Then nothing. The silence from his side was not surprising. He did not pursue. He did not fight. He simply moved the weight of his attention somewhere else. And somewhere out there, another woman was probably sitting across from him at a table, feeling like the most important person in any room he entered. I called the previous woman to tell her my daughter had ended it, that she was going to be all right. She cried. Not loudly, the specific, quiet kind of crying that happens when something you have been hoping for a long time finally arrives, and the relief of it is bigger than you expected, she said. Tell her she did something I could not do, I said. I will, she said. Tell her it gets easier, the knowing your own mind again. It comes back, not all at once, but it comes back. I said, I will tell her both of those things. My daughter called her best friend the day after she sat at my kitchen table. The friend answered on the first ring. She told me later that they talked for 4 hours. That the friend had said she had been waiting for that call for 8 months. That she had kept her number at the top of her phone just in case. My daughter started seeing a therapist 3 weeks after she ended it. Not because I suggested it, because she wanted to understand what had happened to her. How she had not seen it coming. She wanted to know herself clearly again, to trust what she felt, to be able to tell the difference between her own thoughts and the ones that had been placed there. She called me after her first session. She said, "It has a name. What he did. There is a word for it." I said, "I know," she said. "Did you know before?" I said, "I started to understand it when I spoke to the woman before you." Then she said, "There are others. She has been talking to them." She said, "They are thinking about speaking publicly, about what happened to them, that my name might be part of it." I said, "Is that all right with you?" She said, "If it stops it happening to someone else." "Yes," she said. "I wanted you to know first," I said. "Thank you." The weeks after were not simple. There were days she called me and she sounded like herself again. And there were days she called me and the voice I heard was different, quieter, more uncertain. Days when something he had said to her surfaced, and she found herself believing it again before she caught herself believing it. Those days were harder, but she always called. Whatever day it was, whatever she was feeling, she called. The helpline number disappeared from the top of her recent calls. The lecturer she had not spoken to in years. The unfamiliar numbers she had reached for in a crisis. All of them gone. The best friend's number back where it belonged. And my number was there every day. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Because I am still the person she wants to tell things to. He had spent 8 months trying to take that. He had not managed it. She called me on a Thursday evening about 2 months after she ended it. Not for any particular reason. She had been walking home from work and she saw something that reminded her of me. A plant in a shop window. The specific dying quality of it. The way it refused to finish. She called to tell me about it. We talked for 40 minutes about nothing. About everything. The way we always had. When the call was about to end, she said, "I have been thinking about something." I waited. She paused. Not the pause I had learned to notice and file. Something different. The kind that comes before something true, rather than something checked. She said, "I think I stopped calling you because I was afraid that if you came, you would see me as someone who needed saving, and I did not want you to see me that way." I said, "I know," she said, "but you would not have come to save me." I said, "No." she said. You would have come to stand next to me. I said nothing. She said, there is a difference. I said, yes, there is. Then she said, I know that now. I looked at my phone screen after she said that. Her nickname, still there. The one I gave her when she was 7 years old. The one that exists nowhere else in the world. Then she said, not Mum. The name she had for me. The childhood one. The one that only lives in her mouth when she is completely herself. When she is not checking anything. When she is just my daughter, talking to her mother, because she wants to. I heard it, and I did not say anything about it. I just kept talking. Because you do not make a ceremony of the things that come back. You just keep going. Like they were always there. Like they never left. The spider plant on my kitchen windowsill is still dying slowly. I am still watering it. She gave it to me 2 winters ago in a paper bag and said it would make the kitchen feel alive. It does not make the kitchen feel alive. But she gave it to me. Last Sunday she came for dinner. She stood at the windowsill. She looked at it for a moment. Then she said, Mum, that plant is dead. I said, it is not dead. It is just taking its time. She laughed. The real one. The one that starts in her chest and arrives slightly surprised. Like joy is something that still finds her before she can prepare for it. I had not heard it in months. I stood in my kitchen and listened. I did not say a word. Some things you just let happen. If you are still here, I want to ask you one thing. Not where you are watching from. Not what time it is. I want to ask if there is someone in your life whose number you have kept at the top of your phone, just in case. Or if you are the person someone else has been keeping at the top of theirs. Because that is what this story is about. Not the man, not the investigation, not even the house or the height marks, or the laugh that starts in the chest. It is about the person whose name only exists in one place in the world, and what it costs to press the button, and what it gives back when you do. Leave a comment below. Tell me if you have ever been the mother who found something in a drawer she was not searching, or the daughter who looked at the right name and could not press the button, or the friend who kept the number at the top, just in case. Subscribe to Voices of Mia. Every day there is a story like this one, about the thing underneath the thing, about what gets taken so carefully you do not notice it is gone, and about the moment you find it again, in a drawer you were not searching, or a name on a screen that only exists in one place in the world, and you press the button. Before I go, I want to say something. Not advice, not a list of warning signs, just the thing I wish someone had said to me before I found that phone bill in the drawer. If you are the mother, you are not being paranoid. The fact that you cannot explain what is wrong does not mean nothing is wrong. It means what is wrong is designed to be unexplainable, designed to make you doubt your own eyes, designed to make you feel like the problem is your perception rather than his behavior. You have spent years learning how this person moves through the world. You know the sound of their real laugh. You know the pause that means something is wrong before they say a word. You know the difference between who they are and who they are performing. That knowledge is not control. It is love that has had enough time to become fluent. Trust it. And when you do not know what to do next, do the smallest possible thing. Not a confrontation, not an ultimatum. The smallest thing. A text that asks nothing. A visit that expects nothing. A phone call that is just the ordinary kind. Be so consistently there that when they are finally ready to reach for someone, your name is the one that arrives first. If you are the daughter, the part of you that knows something is wrong is not a pattern. It is not a wound from your childhood surfacing. It is not evidence of the difficult relationship you have been told you have with the people who love you. It is not the anxious attachment he has been so patient in helping you understand. It is you, the original you. The one who existed before anyone had the chance to explain you to yourself. He gave that part of you a name so that you would stop listening to it. But it has been right about everything. And if you are watching this at midnight, while he is in the next room, I want you to know something. The bag you packed and unpacked, the number you looked at and could not press, The feeling underneath the happiness that you told yourself was your pattern. None of that was your pattern. That was you trying to come home. If you are the friend, you did not fail them. You kept the number at the top of your phone. You answered on the first ring when they finally called. You told them clearly that what they were describing was not who they were. That is not nothing. That is everything. The thing about this kind of situation is that nobody can pull someone out of it from the outside. The person has to find the door themselves. What you did was make sure the door was still there when they were ready to look for it. Keep doing that. Keep answering on the first ring. If you got out, I know you still have days when something surfaces and you find yourself believing it again before you catch yourself believing it. I know it takes longer than people think to trust your own mind again. I know there are things you have never said out loud because you are not sure there are words for them that do not sound dramatic. You are further along than you think, and the fact that you can watch a story like this and recognize it means the part of you that knows the difference is back. It was always there. It just needed time. Now I want to hear from you. Not what you thought of the story, not whether you liked it. I want to know the small thing. The first thing that did not fit. The detail that arrived before everything else, and that you filed away because filing it felt safer than looking at it. Tell me in the comments, because I think every person watching this already knew something before they found this video, and I think most of them have never told anyone what that thing was. This is the place to say it. I read every single comment, and if nobody else has said it to you yet, I believe you.